My name is Marshall Cade. I'm 42 years old, and on January 3, 2025, I died in the parking lot of a hardware store in Tennessee. I wasn't sick. I didn't get into a wreck. 1 second I was unlocking the driver's side door of my truck, and the next I was face down on the frozen pavement with my heart stopped cold. But that's not where my story ends. That's where it begins. I live in a small town called Marion Ridge. You've probably never heard of it. One stoplight, a couple diners, and a gas station that still takes checks. I've lived there my whole life. I run a fencing business. Cattle fences mostly, a few privacy builds. My son, Caleb, is 12 and smarter than I'll ever be. My wife's name is Erin. She teaches music at the middle school and makes the best blackberry cobbler this side of the Mississippi. We live in a white house on a red clay hill, about 10 minutes from the lake. We weren't special. Not the kind of family that ends up on the news. We watched old westerns on Friday nights, argued about who left the lights on, and made grocery lists we never stuck to. We had our stress, money mostly, but we had love. And laughter. And enough. That morning was bitter cold. The kind that gets under your skin and into your bones. I'd driven to Tomlin's Hardware to pick up some posts for a job down near the Miller farm. I remember the sky was a dull steel gray, heavy with snow that hadn't quite made up its mind. I was thinking about supper, wondering if Erin had remembered to pull the chicken. I never felt the pain, just a sudden pressure in my chest like someone flipped a switch, and everything inside me collapsed. Then black. No falling. No sound. Just gone. But something else happened. I woke up. And I wasn't in Tennessee anymore. I opened my eyes, or thought I did, and found myself standing. But not on asphalt. Not in the parking lot. The world around me was soft, quiet, like waking up inside a dream you didn't know you were having. There was no pain, no cold, no sound except a faint hum, like wind moving through tall grass. I looked down and realized I wasn't wearing anything. Not in a shameful way, just. I had no body. I was still me, fully aware, but I didn't have hands, skin, weight. I wasn't breathing, but I didn't need to. I didn't feel fear. I felt still. I turned around instinctively, though I had no legs, and that's when I saw it, my body. I was lying on the pavement next to my truck, arms twisted awkwardly, one boot kicked off. A man in a brown Carhartt jacket, Kyle, the store manager, was running toward me, his phone already at his ear. My face looked pale, almost blue. My eyes were open but not seeing anything. I should have panicked. But I didn't. I just watched. A strange sense of peace settled over me, like watching a memory of someone else. Then I felt something. A pull. Like a tide, deep and irresistible, tugging me upward, outward. Not with fear but with intention. Someone, was calling me. I rose, slowly at first, then faster. I passed the town like a bird, the rooftops of Marion Ridge, the steeple of Grace Hill Church, the school bus turning down Main. Then all of it disappeared in a rush of colorless light. I floated through a space I can't describe with earthly words. It wasn't dark, but it wasn't light either. It was thick with meaning. Every inch of it seemed alive, like it knew me. And then the silence broke. Not with sound, but with a feeling. A presence. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't even loud. It was more like a whisper that filled the entire universe. Marshall. I didn't hear it with my ears. I felt it inside me, as if my very name had weight and purpose. Then the space around me began to change. The colorless mist shifted, not like fog, but like a curtain being drawn back, and suddenly, I saw something. Or someone. He stood in the distance. Still, unmoving, surrounded by a light that didn't cast shadows. It was warm. Not heat. Warmth like being known and accepted and forgiven all at once. I didn't walk to him. I simply began to be near him. And as I did, every weight I didn't know I was carrying began to fall away. Regret. Guilt. Anxiety. The echo of every harsh word I'd ever said. Gone. He didn't speak again. He didn't have to. I knew. He was close now. Not in a physical sense, but in a way that made every part of my soul feel exposed and safe at the same time. The man in the light stood maybe 10 feet from me, though I don't think distance meant anything here. He wore a simple robe, off-white, almost glowing, not from the fabric, but from whatever was radiating through him. His hair was shoulder-length and dark, his skin olive, weathered like someone who'd worked outside his whole life. But it was his eyes I couldn't look away from. They weren't a color. They were everything. Oceans. Fire. Forgiveness. When he looked at me, I felt as though he had known every version of me. The boy who lied to his mother, the teenager who drank too much, the man who snapped at his wife after a hard day, and loved me anyway. He never asked my name. He didn't have to. "You've carried so much," he said. "More than you needed to." His voice wasn't a sound. It was a knowing. A warmth that spread through me like the first light after a long, cold night. Then something began to happen. Around us, the air shimmered. And suddenly, like flipping through pages of a book, I started to see my life. Not in order. Not like a movie. But through moments, feelings, choices. I saw my dad teaching me how to drive, his hand tapping the dashboard when I turned too fast. I saw Erin on our wedding day, barefoot in the grass behind the chapel, laughing because the preacher called her Emily. I saw myself yelling at Caleb when he accidentally cracked the screen door with a baseball. I felt the sting in his chest. I felt the weight of my words like bruises on his spirit. "Nothing is hidden here," he said gently. And yet, there was no condemnation. Not an ounce. Only clarity. Truth like clean water. I was shown things I'd forgotten. The time I fixed an old man's flat tire without expecting thanks, the day I stayed up all night with my mom when she had the flu, how I used to pray when I was a boy, simple, honest prayers. "God, please help my dog not die." He saw it all. Not just my actions, but my intentions. And somehow, even with all the failure, all the compromise, all the times I got it wrong, I felt loved. Deeply. Unconditionally. Completely. I wept. Not from shame. From the unbearable relief of being fully seen and still chosen. "You were never alone, Marshall," he said. And in that moment, I believed it. Every quiet prayer I'd ever whispered. Every time I thought, "God, if you're real," he'd heard me. Not a single one had gone unnoticed. Then his expression changed. Still kind. Still loving. But solemn. "There is something you must see," he said. "Before you decide." I didn't know what he meant. Decide what? I thought I was already dead. But something was shifting again. The light began to bend, and I felt the space around us start to move. We were going somewhere else. The space around us dissolved like smoke in wind. And then we were standing, or floating, before what looked like an enormous window into the world. But it wasn't a screen. It wasn't digital. It was alive. I could see every corner of the United States like a pulsing map, not of roads and cities, but of souls. Lights flickered where people were praying, loving, helping. But there were patches, thick, sprawling, covered in a dark fog. I looked closer. It wasn't just fog. It was like spiritual smog, black, heavy, sticky, clinging to everything it touched. "What is that?" I asked. "Distraction," he answered. "Fear. Pride. Division." I saw families, together but separate, sitting in the same room, faces glowing from different screens, hearts 1,000 miles apart. I saw young girls scrolling through filters and lies, believing they weren't beautiful. I saw young men, numb from hours of violence flashing in front of their eyes, thinking power came from rage. I saw pastors preaching politics instead of grace, teachers afraid to speak truth, and parents too exhausted to lead. Then I saw something else. The church. Not a building, the people. Some lights were bright, burning hot and clear. But others flickered faintly, nearly gone. I saw jealousy. Comparison. Entertainment instead of transformation. "They are weary," he said. "They are overwhelmed with noise. and they have forgotten how to listen. I felt grief rise in my chest, not just mine, but his. It wasn't anger. It was heartbreak. Like a father watching his child chase a lie that will only lead to ruin. I do not send storms to punish, he said, but I allow shaking to wake the sleepers. And then the scene changed again. I saw a city without power. No lights. No phones. No internet. People filled the streets in panic, looting stores, screaming, grasping. But slowly, something else began. I saw a man light a candle in his window. Then another. Then a family gathered around a fire in their driveway, reading scripture aloud. I saw a woman singing softly to herself while helping an elderly neighbor carry water. Hands reaching. Voices praying. Eyes lifted. And with every act of real love, every prayer spoken in the dark, the fog began to retreat. "Do you see?" he asked. "In the silence, they remember me. In the shaking, they search for what cannot be shaken." He turned to me, and there was a fierce gentleness in his eyes. "This is coming, Marshall. Not to destroy, but to restore. And you must tell them." I didn't speak. I couldn't. I was watching a nation on the edge of collapse, but also on the edge of awakening. And I suddenly understood why he had shown me this. There was more to my story. For a long moment, I said nothing. How could I? I just seen the world I thought I knew, not the surface of it, but the soul of it, trembling under the weight of its own blindness, and yet still loved beyond measure. I turned to him, to Jesus, and my spirit trembled. "Why me?" I asked. "I'm no preacher. I'm no prophet. I'm just a man who builds fences." His smile was soft, not amused, but intimate, like he knew exactly what I meant and loved me for asking. "That's why," he said. "Because you're not trying to be impressive. You're trying to be faithful." I felt something move inside me, like a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years finally let go. Then the ache hit hard. I thought about Erin. Her freckles. The way she hums while folding laundry. I thought about Caleb. His wild curls and the way he pretends not to care, but always looks back one more time when I drop him off at school. "I don't want to leave you," I whispered. This peace. This presence. I've never known anything like it." He stepped closer. If I had a body, I would have dropped to my knees. But he just reached toward me, and even that small motion radiated power and tenderness. "The world is not ready to hear my voice," he said. "But they will hear yours. I'm sending you back. Not for comfort, but for purpose." That word struck me like lightning. Purpose. I hadn't realized how starved I'd been for it. He reached out and touched what I can only describe as my soul. It felt like light entered me, not from the outside in, but from the inside out, like he was igniting something that had always been there, just dormant. "Tell them I am not distant. Tell them I am not angry. Tell them I am coming, not to crush, but to rescue." He paused. "And tell them to prepare, not with fear, not with bunkers or canned food, but with forgiveness, with repentance, with love." Then his expression changed again. This time, a deep gravity filled the space. "Marshall Cade," he said, and my name in his voice felt like thunder and bomb all at once. "You will go back. You will walk among the broken. And you will be my reminder that no one is too far, no heart too hardened, no life too lost." My soul shuddered. "Will you stay with me?" I asked, barely able to form the thought. "Every step," he said. "Every word. You will never be alone again." And then, it began. The light intensified. The mist returned. His face, that beautiful, loving face, began to blur. I cried out inside, not in rebellion, but in sorrow. Leaving him was the hardest thing I've ever done. And then the fire hit. The first thing I felt was fire. Not a metaphor. It was real, searing, stabbing pain in the center of my chest. Then came the cold. Wet, biting cold all over my body. I tried to scream, but I was choking, drowning in air and water at the same time. Then noise. So much noise. We've got something. Pulse is coming back. He's breathing, he's breathing. I gasped, sharp and violent, like a man coming up from the bottom of a lake. My eyes snapped open, but the lights were too bright. Fluorescents, cold and humming above me. Figures in medical gear hovered over me, their voices frantic, relieved, overwhelmed. I heard beeping. A mask was on my face. Someone was squeezing my hand. Marshall? Sir, can you hear me? Nod if you can understand me. I tried. My whole body shook. I was lying on a stretcher in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in thermal blankets, soaked through with half-melted snow. The paramedic, a woman with kind, wide eyes and a Tennessee badge, looked like she had seen a ghost. Maybe she had. You flatlined, she said quietly. We had no pulse for nearly 23 minutes. She blinked hard, almost like she was trying not to cry. Sir, you were gone. I wanted to tell her everything. About Jesus. About the light. About the world I saw and the message he gave me. But I couldn't speak yet. My voice was barely a rasp. My body was alive again, but my soul was still trying to catch up. They took me to Marion General, a small hospital tucked behind the high school football field. They ran tests, scans, hooked me to wires and IVs. I drifted in and out of sleep, caught between dimensions, my spirit still echoing with what I had seen. At some point in the night, a nurse leaned over me. You've got family here, she said with a small smile. And then the door opened. Erin. Her face was blotchy from crying, but beautiful, more beautiful than I had ever remembered. She rushed to my side and clutched my hand like it was the last real thing in the world. Marshall, she sobbed. You came back. I couldn't stop the tears. Neither could she. Moments later, I heard a smaller voice, quiet, shaky, trying to be brave. Dad. Caleb. My boy. His eyes wide with something between fear and wonder. I opened my arms, and he climbed into that hospital bed without a second thought. We didn't speak. We just held each other. And I understood, without question, why he had sent me back. The doctors said I was lucky. That was the word they used. Over and over. It's a miracle you didn't suffer brain damage. 23 minutes without a heartbeat? We've never seen anything like it. You're 1 in a million. But I wasn't lucky. I was sent back. And that meant I had something to do. I stayed in the hospital for 2 days under observation. Erin never left my side. Caleb slept on the couch, curled up like he used to when he was 6. They brought flowers. Cards. A church friend brought me a box of barbecue I couldn't finish. But the weight in my chest wasn't from ribs or medicine. It was from the message. I had seen Jesus. I had heard his voice. I had seen the soul of America cracking beneath the weight of distraction and pride. I had to speak. The first person I told was Erin. I waited until Caleb was out of the room, chasing a snack from the vending machine. She was sitting beside my bed, reading from a dog-eared book, her glasses sliding down her nose. Erin, I said quietly. She looked up immediately, all attention. I need to tell you what happened. Not just the heart attack. All of it. She didn't interrupt. She just nodded. And I told her. Everything. The light. The presence. The voice that called my name. The visions of the world. The coming shaking. The call to return. The peace. The pain of leaving it behind. By the time I finished, she was crying. Not out of fear. But something deeper. Recognition. Conviction. You saw him, she whispered. You really saw him. I nodded. He said I have to tell people. That the storms aren't punishment. They're mercy. A rescue. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to mine, and we just sat like that. 2 souls holding on to the only thing that felt real. But outside that hospital room, things weren't so easy. I told my brother. He's a firefighter in Chattanooga. He listened quietly, then said, Man, you were dead. Your brain probably just made something up to cope. Like a dream. I told my pastor. He said it sounded beautiful, but warned me not to build theology around personal experience. I told a friend from town, and he nodded politely, then never brought it up again. Not everyone disbelieved, but no one really understood. And that was the hardest part. Carrying a truth you didn't ask for. Holding a fire in your bones, knowing it was never meant to stay inside you. I wasn't looking for attention. I wasn't trying to start a movement. I just wanted people to wake up. To hear again. To remember that Jesus wasn't a storybook figure or Sunday morning tradition. He was real. Alive. And he was coming. There's a strange kind of loneliness that comes from seeing what others can't. I didn't expect applause. I didn't expect to be believed by everyone. But I wasn't prepared for the silence, the awkward pauses, the glances exchanged across church pews, the way conversations suddenly changed when I walked into the room. Some folks thought I'd lost it from the trauma. Others said nothing, just smiled politely and kept their distance. It felt like I was carrying a burning torch in a town made of wet matches. The weight of the message grew heavier. Some nights, I'd sit alone on the porch, staring up at the stars, and ask aloud, "Lord, am I crazy? Did I really hear you? Or did I imagine it all?" There were no voices in the sky. Just silence. Cold and honest. But somewhere deep inside, I still felt his peace. Not loud, but solid. Like a stone at the bottom of a river, unmoved by the current. Still, I didn't know how to speak. I wasn't a preacher. I wasn't polished. I just knew what I saw, and it was realer than anything I'd touched in this world. Then, something changed. It started with one conversation. A young man named Dorian, a mechanic who had worked on my truck a few times, came by the shop. He lingered after paying for some gate repairs, his hands fidgeting. "Hey, Mr. Cade," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "I heard, what happened to you? The death thing." I nodded, ready for another awkward silence. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "When you were, wherever you were, did you feel afraid?" I looked him in the eye and said the truest thing I've ever said. No. I felt more alive than I've ever felt here. And I felt loved. Completely. Like he knew every part of me and still wanted me. He stared at the ground for a long while, then said quietly, "I think I need that." We sat on the tailgate of my truck for nearly an hour. I told him the whole story, the fog, the vision of America, the warning, the light. And for the first time, I saw it, a flicker in his eyes, a crack in the wall around his heart. Word began to spread, not through microphones or pulpits, but through whispers. People came, one at a time. A widow who hadn't prayed in years. A teenager who was thinking about ending it. A man who used to be a pastor but left the church after his daughter died. I didn't give them theology. I gave them testimony. And something started to break open. Hearts. Walls. Old wounds. One Sunday night, months later, I was invited to share my story at a small community center. Maybe 30 people showed up. I stood there in work boots and a flannel shirt, hands trembling, voice rough. I didn't preach. I just told the truth. And when I finished, the room was silent. Not empty silent, but wholly silent. The kind of quiet where something bigger is sitting in the room. A woman began to weep in the back. A man dropped to his knees in the front row. And I knew. The message wasn't mine. It never was. If you're listening to this, maybe you're like I was. Busy. Numb. Tired. Just trying to get through the week. Maybe you're scrolling past another video or podcast, halfway paying attention while the world keeps screaming in your ear. I get it. I was you. But please, stop for a moment. Let me tell you something that cost me everything to learn. He sees you. Not the filtered version. Not the version you show to church, or to coworkers, or to social media. The real you. He sees the nights you cry in secret. He sees the fear you don't talk about. He hears the prayers you gave up believing He could answer. And He's not angry at you. He's calling you, not to religion, not to performance, to relationship. I saw what's coming. I wish I could tell you it's all going to get easier, but it's not. The world is going to shake. The idols we've trusted, money, image, politics, convenience, they're going to fall. Not because God is cruel, but because He is merciful. He is stripping away the noise so we can finally hear Him again. And when that shaking comes, whether it's a storm, a sickness, a blackout, or just the moment when life falls apart, you won't need another news report or expert or escape plan. You'll need Him. So here's what I came back to say. Prepare your hearts. Not your basements. Not your bunkers. Your hearts. Forgive someone who hurt you. Tell the truth you've been holding in. Turn off the noise. Sit in silence. Pray. Not fancy prayers. Just honest ones. Ask Him to speak. He will. Because He's real. He's not far. And He's coming. Not with wrath. With rescue. I was dead for 23 minutes. And now I'm alive, in more ways than one. Not because I'm special, but because He is faithful. He sent me back with one task. To tell you, you are not forgotten. You are not too far gone. And you are not alone. This is Marshall Cade. From Marion Ridge, Tennessee. Fence builder. Husband. Father. Once dead. Now sent. And this is the message. Jesus is alive. Heaven is real. And the time to return is now. Prepare your heart.